Hi guys, welcome back to SwitchUp. Remember to stick around for our sales video coming out tomorrow. We will be giving away 3 more copies of Children of Mortar as we head towards 100,000 subscribers. Crazy times. Today we've got something that is absolutely not up my street at all. Not because it's scary, just because it takes too long to play. Yeah. With that being said, Glen's going to do the impressions section of this one, and I'll do the performance. Because I'm good at performance and he's good at him. Anyway. Is the game worth picking up? Well, let's find out.
Well, usually Mark does these performance reviews by himself, but when he heard it was a horror game this time, well, he went and hid behind the sofa, so I'll get us started, shall I? Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted tells the tale of Fazbear Entertainment's attempts to distance themselves from the stories of the strange happenings reported to have taken place on their premises over the years. The way they have chosen to do this though is by having a virtual reality game created that makes fun of such stories and will scare a few people along the way. This basically leads to a collection of minigames based on the Five Nights universe. Some of these minigames are based on previous entries in the series, namely parts 1, 2, 3 and 4 and Sister Location, with the main iconic scene being that of you taking on the role of a security guard. You must survive the night by keeping a watchful eye on the cameras, closing doors and turning on lights, etc. to keep yourself safe, all the while ensuring you do not use up the generator power. These scenes have been constructed in a 3D setting to fully utilise the virtual reality aspect. Now the reason for all the talk of VR within the game is because Help Wanted was originally created as a virtual reality experience for Microsoft Windows and the PlayStation VR. A non-VR version was created late last year, and it's this version that has landed on the Switch. It's a bit strange that the game still refers to itself as a VR experience. Even the health disclaimers at the beginning still refer to the game being in VR, but aside from the story itself being about a VR game, you will very much be playing this with a standard control scheme. There are around 50 minigames in total, and as well as the ones I've already mentioned based on previous entries, you also have things such as vent repair, where you must repair a series of ventilation shafts whilst keeping the animatronic animals away from you, and night terrors, where you must play a deadly game of hide and seek. Some of the scenarios for these are based on the 4th and 5th games. So how does the game translate into a more traditional control scheme considering its VR roots? Well, whilst I cannot make a direct comparison, having never played the VR version, it's very clear that the game was built with virtual reality in mind. Some games, such as Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, have been completely repurposed when VR was removed, and you don't get that impression here at all. You move your character's line of sight with the left stick and interact with objects with a press of the B button for the most part, although other buttons will be needed and you will be prompted when appropriate. Switching the cameras when playing the classic modes is achieved by either moving the right stick or the D-pad. Movement just seems a bit too sensitive by default, although you can configure this, and as much as a contradiction as this might sound, at other times it doesn't feel as if you can move your head quickly enough to manage the threat that's coming from all sides. Something I'm pretty sure would have been much easier and more natural when playing in virtual reality. That being said, it's just a case of finding the sweet spot with the controls and getting used to the gameplay. The minigames are separated into various categories, with new ones being unlocked on completion of existing ones. There are tokens to find in order to unlock rewards and prizes to win for completing games. It's all incredibly creepy, with jump scares aplenty, although they are so frequent that you will probably desensitise to them fairly quickly, although that's always been the fun of the Five Nights games. So the major sticking point for me really was the control scheme, which as I mentioned for this non-VR version is quite awkward a lot of the time. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Mark now and he can talk you through the performancey bits, provided of course he's come out from behind the sofa.
Cheers for that, Glen. I'm just climbing out of the closet because it was warm and safe. In terms of file size then, the game comes in at 13 gigs and is a fully 3D title unlike some of the earlier ones. It can be played in handheld, tabletop, TV mode and has save data storage in the cloud. Controls are quite straightforward. One will control the head movement of the camera, but unfortunately there's no motion controls here, which is a bit of a shame, but let's be honest, it's not essential in this type of game. What we're really interested in is how it looks and how it performs, as this is the most premium Five Nights at Freddy's game we've had on the Switch, and includes several remakes of scenes from earlier titles, including Freddy 1, 2, 3 and 4, and Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. Let's take a look then at the performance. Well, in terms of the performance, it's a very strange one. It uses the Unreal Engine, I believe, and they've gone for an uncapped frame rate. Now, If this was a roller coaster, my goodness, would it be a terrifying one. Just take a look at the graph for the performance. It literally goes from 50 frames per second plus all the way down to 25 within the space of a few seconds, and then back up again, and the pattern seems to be that way throughout. What this means for the player is that you will notice some shifts in performance. Thankfully, for the majority of the time, it's above 30 frames per second, which is only going to result in some screen tearing and a little bit of judder, but you'll definitely have times where you feel it dip, and for some people that can cause a bit of motion sickness, but for me it just hurts my eyes. Now, why they didn't go for a locked out 30, I do not know, but let's be honest, it's becoming a bit of a pattern on the Switch. What the game does do, to its credit, to try and alleviate a bit of that is to have quite a heavy motion blur. Some people like this, some don't, but it disguises a lot of those drops as it essentially blends the scene for a few moments. Now, one issue that I've noticed so far from the footage watching it back is that, look, the game relies on jump scares. We all know that. You sit in your little office room looking at cameras and waiting for something to scare you. Now, unfortunately, what I've seen here is that just at the moment of scare, the game can hang for a few moments. You literally can look at the screen there, it freezes, so it kind of destroys the jump scare part, because you're like, oh, the game's hung, that means there's a scare coming. And sure enough, yeah, he pops up. What's also evident is that they've not done a great deal from the VR release of this title. Many of the options menus and the tips are quite clearly directed towards someone playing in VR, which for this premium price, yeah, let's be honest, that's not feeling great. Some of the remade areas are okay-ish, but again, they're not really setting the world on fire. Overall, it just feels like a bit of a lackluster effort in terms of the visuals and performance. Thanks to Glen for doing his bit at the start there. Yeah, nice one. Could have done it myself, but I ran out of time. For all things Switch, oh yeah, big thanks to the patrons and all of you who support us and leave comments. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys. See ya!